speaking of contrast, let's do contrast before, because it's not reflected in the MadeToTag user interface, but it's a very important thing. As you can see here, we are not only using black text on white background, for example, which is always a good idea. We're using white text on red background. Let's just change the color for a moment of the background to I know how to operate InDesign, but I'm not always fast. So let's assume we have this color panel here, and I wanted to do something fancy. So yeah, so let's use a different color. And it's already getting dangerous because white text on medium green is already more difficult to read than the relatively strong red that we had before. And if I make it even lighter, like this, it may look very nice. Yeah, so the visual appeal might be very cool, but it's becoming more and more difficult to read. There are official methods to find out whether the contrast is sufficient or not. If you look for color contrast on the internet, you find all kinds of tools that help you compute the value that is good. I think I have one thing here: color contrast analyzer. Where is it? Yeah. So you can enter color values, and the computations are always based on the RGB value, so it's not scientifically precise, but it's sufficiently reliable. And you would have to pick up your values, for example. So this is what's the shortcut for copying? Copy color as text would be Command-Shift-C. So I could enter this here. And it's telling me that on the background of accessibility, it's not sufficient. Yeah, so it's the color brightness.
Actually, it's the opposite. It's white text in background.
Yeah, but
I don't know if it changes.
It does not change the.
It's not exactly the same.
So it's,
yeah.
So the computation is the same.
That sometimes you can read in one order and
yeah, yeah. But in general terms, the computation is the same anyway, whether it's background or foreground, or color or other way around. So in this case, the tool would tell you, well, not a good idea. Now it's very cumbersome to pull out the tool each time you have a color combination that you don't know already is good enough or is not good. There's a relatively easy approximation. If you print this out on a black and white laser printer, everything you find easy to read is probably good. Everything you find a little bit difficult to read or maybe even impossible to read is a problem. If you print this on a black and white laser printer, I think you and I can still read it, but it's like, what does it say? And you say, not good. Yeah. Whereas I think I would claim, I haven't actually tried. For the red, let's just do the example. That's not enough.
Yeah.
I have an excuse. The type is very large, but
yeah, and again, depend also on the weight of the text
yeah.
as well, because here it's very thin and here.
Yeah. So the rules are also different for small text. I think Jens will know the details. I don't have them. Yeah. Yeah.
And it depends also on the font. If it's like serif or sans serif, for example. So then, of course, you have those different sizes.
So the WCAG, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is kind of the established principle for determining whether the contrast is sufficient or not. They kind of just have one rule for normal text size and big text size. So I think it's 12 point or something like that, and then 18 point and up. And then they have a computation that's based on RGB values, and they say this is good enough, this is not good enough. Yeah, on the font, on the text size, but not on the font type, and then on the color.
This is not related to screen visibility, not printed.
Both, actually. Even if you so for some audiences, you might create, for example, large print books or pieces of printed material where you just use larger fonts. So people with low vision using a magnifying glass or putting it very close to their eyes could still read it. Or elder people who are losing some of their vision and they can't see that good anymore, so they can't read 9-point type, but they can read 14-point type, for example. Yeah. So anyway, you should pay attention to this. Just in terms of statistics, most of the designers are young people, as a matter of fact. Most of the readers are older than the designers, on average. Yeah. So in many cases, the target population is the rest of the population. It's not the young people between 18 and 25. It's people 40, 50, and 60. So on average, people get vision problems at the age of 40, 50. So I have my reading glasses since 3 years now, I think, and I'm 53. So I was lucky enough to get away without glasses until 50. But my doctor told me it usually happens between 40 and 50. Most people show up at that age in his house and then get some simple glasses at least. And it gets worse over time in many cases. And a large part of the population that has vision problems is old people. The number of vision impaired people that are young because of a deficiency when they were born or an accident or whatever is relatively small. And it's relatively large for people 40, 50 and upwards. And it's getting very high at 60, 70, 80. And sometimes comes from other problems, like if you have diabetes, the likelihood that you have vision problems is much higher. And then older people have more problems with their diabetes and so on, and then as a consequence, the vision also gets worse. And I've been through this a couple of times. So I was once working in an association where a bright blue, like that blue from Erdbeerkalk, and even a little bit lighter, was the dominating brand color. And it's in the middle between black and white. So it's always difficult to get a sufficient contrast. If you put white text on small white text on this blue background, it's not good. If you put black text on this blue background, it's difficult. And also if you put blue text on white, because the average brightness of this color is just in the middle. Mm-hmm. It's never far away enough from one or the other extreme. Of course, it looks cool. So the visual appeal of the design was good, but the readability was very bad. And we even had the problem, at that time we were not talking about accessibility. We were creating a website, and then members of the association who are important members, like from the board and so on, they tend to be a little bit older than the designers. And they say, well, the new website, I like it, but it's difficult to read, isn't it? And then you have a problem. So it's important to pay attention, ideally early on. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and designers, they do like 70% black on a 20-30% black, like light gray background because it's really cool. Yeah, but it gets more difficult to read. And then one other thing that can happen, and it's intentional here as well, if you look at this part here, this is risky business because the background is not dark all the time. In some parts it's like even middle gray in terms of brightness value. So you may even have to pay attention to this and either put a black shadow behind the white text or use some transparency effects to use a black border around the characters and so on. So that's one of the things I enjoy doing, and all InDesign experts always dislike me afterwards. So you could say for this frame here, for the text, I have to go into the dialog. So for the text, not for the frame per se, you could do something like an outer glow, but turn the glow to multiply and make it black, so it really gets darker. And then play around with the values. Yeah, it sometimes looks nicer because this effect is a little bit softer on the border, and you get less trouble with your designer.
Sure.
And I always have to play around with it a little bit so that it's strong enough to establish the contrast, but does not destroy the visual effect of the arrangement. So something like this, like if you look at the whole picture, it's there, but it does not disturb the overall appearance of the image. So it doesn't matter exactly what you do, but you should be doing something in this case.
I think you mentioned that good idea is to go in black and white to see if you can actually read it. It would be nice to have a preview feature behind the software, just like we showed that black and white.
Yeah, we have it in mind. The problem is if I do a black and white or a grayscale rendering of the image, it's too good.
Okay, it's better than if you have a...
Yeah, because on the laser printer, it prints at 300 or 600 dpi, and then it does half-toning. And because of that, it gets worse, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And that gives you a good impression of the readability for people who don't have so good eyes. I've actually played around with it in Photoshop just to do this, and maybe to apply a filter and this and that. But the screen is relatively good. Yeah. And even a small grayscale contrast you can still see it relatively well, but you don't see it well on a black and white laser printer. So we are working on it, but we don't have the perfect idea yet. So
yeah, because if what you show is not reflecting what you will get, then that's not one of these. Yeah.
So anyway, so really, if it's the first time you're working with this, make a black and white printout on the cheapest laser printer you can find. Mm-hmm. And then see, oh, this is good to read, easy, good, and then say, maybe don't use bright light, use dimmed light, so you don't have a lot of light, and it's a bit tough to read. Maybe I should do something. And then you have to fight with the designers. Okay. To display on the screen in black and white? Okay, I may have to look at that again. Is it good? Does it work well? Okay. Okay. So the idea is already implemented in a tool that's targeting Office programs and PDF if you have to fix the PDF after the fact. So that was our fourth item, contrast.